because they're so annoying. They are like mosquitoes that buzz around a normal person. They're loud, they're idiots, and they're mean. And they're all around nasty people. Who could be such an asshole? Anyway, that's basically most of the rationale, mate. Alt-right schizoids are generally worse, as they're the ones typically in power, but is it weird to say they aren't as insufferable as leftists? Like, look, when you look at the average MAGA coper who still hasn't admitted, they've been played by the tangerine terror, you can safely say that that person is brainwashed, and any discussion with them is ultimately useless. Like, we can all collectively agree, mates, that they're insane, brainwashed, or they're too proud to admit they were wrong. But one thing that you can give them is when you do call them an idiot, they typically, mind you, typically is doing a lot of heavy lifting, they typically don't think you're an evil or morally bankrupt person. They just think you're misguided. Typically. I find it very fascinating that despite their demented beliefs, like with MAGA morons outside their shitty politics and beliefs, you can actually have a, rather normal relationship with them. And if they aren't completely gone and brainwashed, through empathy and compassion, you can somewhat peel away the reasons why they're so hateful and why they believe, like, the things they believe. And typically, you can disarm the person and make them think differently. Or you can just be me and manipulate and, lie to them in order to make them not MAGA. Yeah, sometimes you just respect a person a little too much that, you have to give them a steady hand and force them to be normal. Is what I do really Machiavellian if, the other person benefits? As they say in the Badlands, who knows, who cares? Regardless, with hardline leftists, there is no room for debate. Typically, if you disagree, you're a Nazi. If you're a Democrat, you're a Nazi. If you're a centrist, you're a Nazi. If you're a Christian, or really any religion, you're a Nazi. For some leftists, if you're a Jew, you're a Nazi. And also, obviously, if you're a conservative, you're definitely a Nazi to them. And finally, the cherry on top, if you will, if you're a leftist, you're a Nazi. My, with such rational conclusions and conduct, how is it that the leftists have never gained power in America, Ace? It must be those meddling CIA agents. Even though they only deal with foreign affairs and shit, somehow it's the CIA and not FBI. I guess because I'm too much of an idiot to understand the difference. Anyway, back to the matter at hand, gentlemen. Basically, the real reason why real centrists, mind you, real certified centrists typically hate more on leftists, and mind you, leftists, not Democrats, is that leftists are, basically the nerd emoji of all politics. Preachy, annoying, know-it-all, and above all else, contradictory. Even though I despise the far right way more than I would a communist, I find myself flaming leftists online and, rage baiting them. Honestly, for the longest time, I didn't know why. I'm horrified of what MAGA can do to this country, yet, the Twitter brain-dead communist is the thing that gets me to roll my eyes enough where I have to play around with them. Just a little. Maybe it's because, extremists just typically give more fun reactions than moderates. Really, I think there's a variety of reasons why centrists hate leftists more, but like I said, I think the main reason for many is how just annoying they are and their stuck-up attitude leftists typically have, and how they think they're basically Jesus Christ and how much of a good person they are. If you watched my AI video, I sorta loathe grandstanding, and I feel so much of leftism online especially is about grandstanding. Look at me, look at how I'm morally superior because I use a tote bag. Or because I hate AI, I'm such a good person. Or because I think the capitalist is the badman, and the people on the top are the badmen. Yeah, and I also don't like serial killers. That doesn't make me a good person. Look, let's get more into the brass tacks of how much leftists are kind of annoying babies. The kind of baby that, cries for hours on end on an airplane. The kind of baby that makes everyone on the plane the closest they'll ever get to becoming a murderer. The kind of baby you just want to smack against the wall, string it up in the air and smack it with a stick like a piano. Yo! Look, I'll be honest with you, lefties. If you weren't so insufferable, you'd probably actually get people to listen to you. But instead, you are disgusting, annoying, insignificant, and pathetic. Your ideologies are anti-American inherently. We're ruthless capitalists, for God's sake. You want moral capitalism or socialism? Go to the EU or rot in Venezuela or some shit. Here in America, the strong survives and the weak dies. The average socialist or leftist is just a Neanderthal that is so pathetic that it can't even defend itself against the capitalist. You silly little leftist. You aren't supposed to fight the big capitalist. You're supposed to become the big capitalist. And don't try to pull that card out on me that, oh, it's impossible to get rich. Wah, 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 wah. You know, because you very much can become a millionaire if you play it smart. And in 2025, according to Forbes, there has been exactly 288 new billionaires in the past year. So clearly, you're doing something wrong, mate. Oh, it's okay, lefties. But you must understand, my boy, that if you ain't strong enough, or smart enough, or creative enough, or skillful enough, or frankly, lucky enough, then you deserve to die. You aren't even worth the dirt that makes up this God-blessed land of the United States. You deserve to die. You, your friends, your family, everyone who isn't strong enough deserves to die. Capitalism is amazing. Yes, you deserve. Ah, shit. Well, I see it now. I see why someone might call me a Nazi. But look, the point here is, while I might be a jerk, that doesn't mean every centrist is like me, you know? That's like generalizing, and generalizing is not a good thing or a moral thing to do. Leftists especially should understand this, which, you know, it's kind of ironic because they love to generalize everything. They be saying, like, every centrist is a fascist, stuff like that. So that's the thing, viewer. I can tell you why I hate the far right easily. Because they're racist assholes who don't know how a government should work and they hate freedom. Anti-American. Nice and simple. Explanation? Not really. You understand it. Now ask me why I hate a leftist, and I'll have to make an entire video essay about it. I mentioned a few of the reasons at the beginning of the video, but really, a main thing for me is the grandstand. Like, I'm sorry, like, you know the shit, like, I'm talking about, like, cultural appropriation. That guy is racist for making a joke about Mexicans. You have to use my pronouns or I'll break that. Actually, you know what? That last one, both sides are kind of complete wussbags. You got grown-ass Republicans crying when they're forced to use the pronouns of some person. Like, calm down, bro. It's a pronoun. You aren't being force-fed like rice cakes. Like, get a grip, idiot. Then you got, like, the trans people crying when someone didn't humor them because the illusion, you know, kind of falls apart the moment someone is a dick and doesn't play along. Grow up. If I was a trans, I could care less if someone called me by my old pronouns. I'd just start calling them fuck/face. This is America. You understand, bros? I get to choose if I want to be an asshole or not. So, if you want, like, a culture war police officer, it's like where, you know, you get arrested for shit like that, then move to the UK where you can get arrested for posting, like, rap lyrics. Silly liberal! Oh, I love LARPing as a blue-collar conservative. Got off topic, but basically, I wish socialists and leftists would just stop pretending they're morally superior, because they typically aren't. Because, you know, they're human, yeah, surprising, humans aren't actually that nice of a people. It's not just that, though. It's also cancel culture. Cancel culture, cancel culture, cancel culture. Ooh, the illustrious cancel culture, where you get canceled for saying things, you know. Sometimes it's, you know, kind of reasonable, sometimes, actually most of the time it isn't. And leftists especially are associated with that. Well, actually, a lot of people don't like that shit. And sometimes you'll see a YouTuber or celebrity will, you know, just get shat on because they said something that leftists disagreed with, and one thing is all it takes for a leftist to eat a fellow leftist alive, even. It bothers me personally, and I know it probably bothers many centrists. The willingness to ruin someone else's life because they said something that hurt your feelings, or something you didn't like. This used to be super bad around 2014 to 2016, I'd say. We recently saw a reversal of this with like the death of Charlie Kirk, and conservatives got really butthurt that people were using this so-called free speech thing to hurt their winner feelings. So they went up and got a bunch of Democrats and lefties fired. Ah, conservative tears. Nothing more delicious. Man, I'm being very antagonistic today, huh? Was I this mean in the last two videos? I think politics really brings out the worst in people. I'm usually kind of a chill dude, you know? Look, the point is, it's very lame how leftists are so sensitive. I mean, the stigma was that the liberals were snowflakes, but these days, honestly, kind of everyone's a snowflake. Really, that's kind of also a lie. I mean, I see MAGA, like, freaking out over made-up scenarios, and at least when leftists freak out, they freak out over actual scenarios and not made-up events. Gotta give them that. I believe most centrists who fall under this category, you know, hating the left because of cancel culture, remember that time period when dems and the left were just very obnoxious. The behavior of saying that men were the problem to everything, that like black people can't be racist, and other insane takes during that time that just ironically radicalized many to the right. That and the SJW stuff that was happening during that time kinda permanently tarnished the DNC and the left in general for many. But that's enough of the past, can't really change it. Only thing left to do now is try to seem cool and not annoying, which is kinda hard when many of the people farther left are just naturally, you know, tacked onto Democrats. That and Democrats are just horrendously boring. An important thing to note so I can explain the next reason, viewer, Americans especially live in their own bubble. And I mean, for kind of a good reason, we're the center of the world in a sense. Many countries will look at our elections because we're the great superpower, very influential. We have every type of season, every type of land in our nation, basically. Our culture is so vast and incorporates other cultures from across the world. Is there really any point in paying attention to the outside world? Yes, obviously you should, but most fellow Americans will not. This has kind of led to a very peculiar understanding of how politics work for most Americans. Many think the Democrats and Republicans are the only things to ever really exist, politically, aside Nazism and communism. To them, the political spectrum is the Democrats and the Republicans. That's it. For many Americans, the policies of the far left and the far right are of the Democrats and the Republicans. What they don't know, especially nowadays, is that the Democrats are not leftists at all. Like, people don't realize, especially with Dems, that we're kinda conservatives. Not me, I'm not a Democrat, but like, America as a whole is a conservative country, for better and for worse. Democrats might lean left, but at the very most, you could say that for most of the party, they sit right at the center of the political spectrum, with the exception of figures like Bernie Sanders, AOC, and Zoran that are more left. Non-Americanos might find this quite obvious, but to us, it's like finding out Santa isn't real! No! Well, my point is that many American centrists are also pretty naive about this true size of the political spectrum. What I'm saying is, when the American centrist is online and they see the Twitter communists celebrating a guy's death, they just think and see that they're a Democrat, and generalize and think that every Dem is a heartless, amoral monster who, if given the chance, would gladly murder every single conservative. To them, there is no difference between a liberal, a social democrat, or a socialist, or perhaps even a communist. To them, it's all the same. This is actually a huge nerf to the Democrats. A huge nerf that they have, like, at this very moment as well. They aren't able to distinguish themselves from extremists or just slightly more left political blocs, which in turn kinda makes sense why, you know, some centrists would hate on them. Because, you know, some centrists just assume communism is inherently tied with, like, the Democrats, or that there's a big part of the Democrats that are communists or socialists, and, you those ideologies did, kill like millions of people and destroyed countries, and some of those countries that have been part of the USSR have never really recovered since then. Socialism is also often associated with failed countries like Venezuela and bad economic policies and shit like that, and social democrats are basically the same thing as a socialist in many centrists' eyes. I'm not saying that's how it should be, I'm saying that's how it is. But, anyway, I kinda hate social democrats anyway. They want this lovey-dovey moral capitalism, it disgusts me! Ugh, social dems just don't know how to have fun. Anywho, to outsiders who often ponder why we Americans are so conservative, the simple answer is that, well, our main rival was a communist dystopia who gave our grandfathers PTSD about being annihilated under the threat of nuclear annihilation. Yeah, sorry, we aren't forgetting communism anytime soon. Though it seems we have completely forgotten about Nazism. Centrists, like anyone, sometimes can't resist the call of the void, and they have a need to debate politics online. And this is where we see that stigma where centrists only ever hate on leftists. But again, like I said at the beginning of the video, we can all agree that MAGA bros are insane, and that there is little value in debating them. When actual centrists ignore the right, it's not because they secretly love it, but it's because they don't even want to humor it. Because any discussion with them is like talking to a very confused and indecisive wall. In contrast, leftists and all their counterparts are able to form, actual argumentation and, have a fun conversation. I value how fun a conversation is based on how many times I get the person mad by baiting them. And sometimes with MAGA, they're so brain dead that they don't even understand I'm insulting them, you see? My boy, you see? It's all about respect. And we centrists actually respect leftists more than we do the other morons. I mean, that's the reason we even humor you folks. Some of your ideas are good, sorta. Others sound good on paper. And other ideas don't really even sound that good on paper at all. There is actual banter to be had with the left, and leftists often simply can't understand that we flame them not because we hate them, or because we're evil, it's because we care. We care so much that we can acknowledge some validity in what leftists point out in capitalism, but at the same time we also acknowledge that skewing too far to the left is a recipe for having a different flavor of tyrants in charge. Speaking of which, really another reason why centrists dislike leftists more is that they just prefer alt-right tyranny and anti-democratic practices than the traditional communist dictatorship that is often debated online. Personally, both are rather terrible, but since I'm white, I guess I would take the fascist dystopia. As, at least as a white guy, I could go about my day, sorta. Very restricted and my freedom's dead, but at least I can go about it and, buy apples or something. With a communist dictatorship, I get sent to the mines to work for 16-hour shifts, and then when I collapse from exhaustion, I go straight to a correctional facility and probably die. Yup. This idea is very much ingrained into a centrist. And to be fair, seeing the Republican Party mangle themselves into this disgusting extremism, what is stopping the Democrats from also being mangled into something far worse than they are already? That is the idea that scares many centrists. Sure as hell scares me. A world where both parties, not just MAGA, are both vile and extreme, is a world where I'm not sure America survives an altercation between the two. Really, what I'm trying to say, my dear viewer, is that while any centrist worth their salt would want the Democrats in charge at the moment, or at the very least want, a traditional neoconservative in charge or whatever, when online, debating leftists, they aren't thinking of the Democrats and MAGA, they're thinking of communist and MAGA. Really, whichever you dislike more, fascism or communism, is your own personal opinion, but for many centrists, communists are just more of a threat to the divine status quo. I mean, sure, the fascists might destroy everything, but at least they'll probably leave capitalism alone. With communism, everything's being torn down. Of course, this is an extreme, but this view that centrists, which they hold, extends to other leftists. They see leftists as more of a threat to the status quo, and if you know a centrist is, they love the status quo. Even though many want change, they want change slowly, low-key. We centrists realize true and good change only comes through a snail's pace, but I think we centrists need to remember that checks and balances very much work. Guys, if we elect a communist, he won't be able to do jack shit to capitalism. But he can introduce maybe some base laws regarding labor or something. We need to get this stigma out of our heads that democracy is fragile. Well, I mean, it kind of is, but I mean, MAGA has shown us that, our democracy is not that fragile. I mean, the amount of road bumps, or more like road landmines, Trump has had to, face to get what he wants is kind of astronomical. Judges constantly block him and sometimes win. Governors don't cooperate, and for something centrists are always so scared of, every time he attempts to do something as dangerous as put like super high tariffs, he chickens out because no doubt every lobbyist, oligarch, and advisor is threatening him and his family's life. A threat to capitalism is met with no mercy. As such, we centrists really need to be open to having the Democrats just be slightly more left, Not a lot more left, just enough where maybe Democrats like Zoran are, a little more common, where people like AOC and Bernie actually, get a shot. Man, this is kind of like the silver lining of the MAGA movement. How democracy is actually strong enough to make sure MAGA doesn't completely destroy our country. It's a nice thought, and something I don't see often talked about. If we can deal with MAGA, we can deal with a few loony leftists, as I think the Democratic Party is actually pretty good with centrism and keeping their members in check, if you will. But we'll actually be in trouble if our democracy is, strong-armed by a wannabe dictator. A man who says he wishes he was. Fucking crazy, by the way, MAGA and all their supporters. Honestly, Trump, as a fellow liar and manipulator, you've somehow conned the entire country into believing into your lunacy. And to be honest, you're not even that good of a liar or manipulator, by the way. You kind of just say things and people want to hear them and you win. Regardless, that's basically it. I think I gave the main reasons why most centrists hate leftists more, which is, they typically are just more annoying and insufferable, which is, very hard to do considering, mind you, who is in charge at the moment. Just goes to show you how obligatory both sides are madmen. Everyone is evil. This world is imperfect. If only I could wipe away the impurities and make it as beautiful as me. Yes, screw both sides. Why care for any side when you can truly experience bliss as a centrist? Centrism is a gateway to happiness. It's like moderation, my friend, but for politics. Compassion, understanding, compromise, and slow change is the way a healthy society evolves. Unfortunately, this is not the type of evolution I wanted to see. But I wish that the status quo would change a little bit. The monkey's paw curls.
A ring around the rosy, pocket full of posies is the old song they say. If you really dream it, then you gotta believe it if you wanna make it true today. Ashes to ashes, little Rosie burns down. No one's making it alive. Hush is the fire that burns down the whole town. All she wants to do is survive. If she wasn't crazy, she'd go insane. Nevermore, nevermore. Jack fell down, but Rosie just laughed. She wanted that part of her to die. He was always holding and pushing her back from who she truly was. Some say she's mental and